share. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Jocko van der Kooi. I'm the founder and CEO of co-CEO of Winning by Design. And as a founder, I started Winning by Design in 2012, late 2012, primarily because I believed that sales, the way it was portrayed in popular culture, in the popular companies, was not the way how I experienced it. This has led to today, just, humble brag, we are about 70 people, multiple continents, and we are a leader in many of the segments, like across, I think on G2 Crowd, with the #1 sales training, #1 sales consulting and firm and so on. So yeah, we're kind of like work mostly with startups, and often we work with startups who are going through a growth / a go-to-market challenge. And so what you'll see, what these challenges are, and generally is, like have to do with numbers and sales and marketing and leads and stuff like that. So that's where we find ourselves in. What I have prepared for you, I'm going to switch on the screen share. What I have prepared for you is I have prepared a deck that I'm going to share with you first. Later on, you're going to get all of the deck. So, and if there's a spreadsheet I'm going to be using, you're going to get access to that too. All of this is intended to the following. I want you to know what my secret agenda is. Well, it ain't secret if I'm going to tell you, but heck, I'm going to do that anyway. Look, I believe that sales, the way we know it, is changing, but that the corporate culture is not changing rapid enough. So I hope to find in you a series of change agents who understand and see the same thing. What I can tell you is that the venture capital market and the private equity market that we're dealing with is already headed this way. I just came off the call with Notion Capital, with Steven. I was on the phone with Ryan from Storm earlier on, Estella. All these VCs are on the same bandwagon. They see that what's going on right now is what is referred to as non-sustainable. And I hope in you that I can reinvigorate, as the first person said, as Debbie said, reinvigorate, like some of what sales is actually about, and get off the bandwagon. It's all about making money for ourselves. It's all about X, Y, Z, and discuss and present to you a different approach to sales. That approach is, generally in a different focus. Now, what I like to share, ask you to type in the box, in the chat box. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not trying to make you fail. I'm just trying to and I'm not looking for a particular person with a particular point of view. I'm just looking to get a series of things that when we read all over it, we go like, wow, that is indeed. Type in in a single word or 2 words or 3 words, what is the responsibility of a sales leader? Type in the bar, what would you think is the responsibility of a sales leader? Thank you, David, for kickstarting it. And Lucas. Great. Coach the team. Great. And so as you start reading that, right, and you see there's quite a diversity, right? Anywhere from customer success, revenue, culture, team. You see like the broad perspective that we go over is quite, amazing. And it's sometimes also the reason why we get into trouble. If I go back 10 years ago, sales was pretty much responsible for hiring salespeople, performing, coaching them, hitting the number, setting the forecast, running the sales kickoff, and so on and so forth, right? And being the motivational speaker at the company and whatnot. And so all these things that you're typing in are all correct, because all of us are sharing that. I'm going to try to simplify that a bit, and I'm going to help you try to create a perspective. What you see here is a sailing boat and how you draw a course. And a sailing boat, starts in the middle between those 2 yellow cones, has to make towards the number 2 marker, tack around or jibe around the number 3, the number 4 marker, head, and so on and so forth. You see how we have to go through this. You can either take course 1 and 5 or course 2 and 4. Don't want to make you sailors. Just want to use this as an example. Your CEO sets the course. We need to get to this number. What you do, what sales leaders are, as that CEO has the rudder in his hand, person in the back, you as the VP of sales, the sales leader, are running all the sale power. What you're doing is you're trying to power up the company. Whatever adjustment you make in sailing, that person that is steering the rudder says to the person who's controlling the sails, adjust your sails to it. I cannot explain you what to do. You need to do this. And so you're constantly, as I am a sailor, and this is an international 14, I've been that person up front. And as you control that, and as you're constantly working the sails, your eye is only on this. That sail is growth. What we need to look at, what we are responsible for is growth. For that, we're using human beings. We're hiring people. We're having processes. But we are essentially, in many cases, the one that drive growth. Now, some cases, that could include growth from existing customers. In some cases, it could be two separate people. If it's combined, it's often referred to as Chief Revenue Officer. If it's separated, we often separate it as a VP of Sales and VP of Account Management. Anecdote, if that bow of that boat hits a wave, I'm the one being projectiled on that little wire, and you see me, it's painful. That's all I can tell you. It's not a fun thing when it happens. That's when you hit the growth curve, a challenge. We have hit that. This is part, we're going to come back to this slide later on. We're going to go dig deeper in this. What we see here is that we see generally an all-out failure of most GTM models, go-to-market models, except product-led growth. I'm going to define all those 5 later on. I just want you to absorb this picture. I want to get the highlight. This is the start of the problem we're having. I'll start in the middle. SDRs are not generating in most markets enough SQLs to pay for themselves. Our email response rates are out of whack. ABM is not working or is not working as advertised. We need to adjust that. Remote selling, field sales organizations need to transform rapidly to remote selling. Industry events where lead gen engines no longer are happening. We have an economic collapse, so budgets are falling aside. This is reality, and so we see across sectors, and we deal on an annual basis. We have about 100 to 200 clients. We see that across sectors, the go-to markets are failing, except product-led growth. Now, again, I'm going to define in a second. You go like, Jocko, what is product-led growth? I want to know all about that. We're going to talk about how this diagram comes to be. Second thing, we are going in a different trend. The trend of unicorn growth, blitz scaling, hyper growth, T2, D3, all that stuff is currently under heavy debate if that has gotten us what we wanted. And what we were seeing is we're chewing through way too many successful companies in order for this market to sustain itself long term. And we see very successful companies with 30, 40, $50 million revenues, profitable, not getting the attention that they need because the valuation simply is, you're not going to be a unicorn. Most of us, if I look at this screen, I have never worked for a unicorn unless you call Philips a unicorn, but it took like 100 years to become a unicorn, and it ain't. So most of us, like unicorn experience, if you have ever been part of it, it is not something that was, it was created or manufactured or something. It was part luck and part deep funding that created it. And generally because of a good product, but it's not because some sales wizardry happened and suddenly we started blitzscaling. It's only in hindsight where we look back that we see that. I know that's provocative. I intend to do that because I'm telling you, only one person on this entire call would be benefiting from blitzscaling. The other 99% are going to be way more benefiting from approaching this in a normal approach. For that, I have come to use models. I'm a model-based person. If we're not using models, we cannot fix it. Most of the reason why sales leaders get fired is not because they missed numbers, it's because they didn't, but they didn't forecast, they didn't set the stage correctly. The outcome of that is that you miss numbers. But normally, what you have to convince your management team, your role is, in my humble view, your role is to explain the models, to explain what is capable of growth. And if the company says we're going to grow 5x beyond that, hey, look, more than welcome to facilitate that and to create a model that create that. But it is not a natural response to what you're having. I want you to be able to have that debate on a management level in the boardroom and run that and show based on math what is and what isn't possible. And if somebody says like, you're not a big believer in this, like it's greenfield, we're going to go, go, go. Like, folks, this may not be the right job for you. You might not be the right choice for them. Because in the end, the outcome, you're going to be hiring people that are going to have babies over Christmas and that you're going to fire before Christmas. And those of you who have, like me, who have done that, that's a big responsibility. And to fire people right now with young families is not pleasant, right? And so that is the responsibility I take, and I want to use something to help that, and that's models. I'm going to use you, and I'm going to explain models through you. This is a 2-hour session. If the feedback is positive, we can go deeper, further, and broader. That's it. Thumbs up if that is what you would like to get out of it. This is something that you feel excited about as well. Great. And by the way, I'm completely fine if somebody says like, oh my gosh, this is not what I wanted. Leave. Totally fine too. Like, welcome. That's a good answer. Okay. I'm going to take you through these models: data modeling, sustainability modeling, GTM, growth, and then I'm going to go back to what the good old days are. Some of this is going to go fast. I assume there's some base level of SaaS knowledge. If there's not, that is fine. We have books for that. I just need to keep the train moving. This cannot be a SaaS class. So I will describe the abbreviation, but I just want to make sure that we're comfortable with not knowing every term. Open up your Google search window, type in the term, and you're going to get it quick enough. This is the data model that we are working off. This data model is referred to as a bow tie. On the left, I got prospects. Horizontally to the right, I create lifetime value. The commit, the close, the win is in the middle. What I'm going to demonstrate to you is what some of these terms are that I'm currently level setting us on. An MQL is a person who came to our website, but not just came to the website, they left something, an email, a trigger. If I engage with them through social, through content, whatever, and they want to have a Zoom session, they become an SQL. Following that Zoom session, if I believe as a seller and they believe we can impact their business, we call it the sales accepted lead. Some of you may have in the past flipped those two. That is because marketing originally directed this terminology. I can tell you there's no salesperson who accepts a lead without qualifying it first. Therefore, in the sales world, you first qualify, then you accept. You don't accept and then qualify. Now, what that also means is that, like following that sales accepted lead, you go through a process, you sign an annual, monthly, quarterly, whatever, but you sign some contract. The disco demo that you are familiar with, the discovery call, sits right between SQL and SAL. That means that if I get an inbound lead that wants a discovery call, I have that discovery call. Then at the outcome, as a salesperson, I go like, yeah, that is a valid lead. Then I accept it. And then I'm going to assist them through the buying process. This is all pretty straightforward. I just want to get us all like, hey, thinking about it the same way so we're all like level set. What we call live is time to first value. That can be because somebody clicked accept on terms. That can be because somebody installed, like a Google thing, whatever it is. If you install a plugin, if it's a 30-day onboarding process, it takes a while, and that time is that we call time to first value. You can now use the product as advertised. Platforms take anywhere up to 30 days. Application can take a download on the App Store and plug in it and stuff like that. So it could be like 30 seconds. These are the next where I'm going are some of the most critical parts that we need to understand that most of us have a challenge with. We need to create a high level, we need to create and highlight the impact. Create is one thing, highlighting it, letting the customer know that we impacted is often falling short. And we need to realize that profit comes from there. This is the data model that we're going to use. In this model, we're going to come back. I'm going to show you where the growth formulas comes in. But this is essentially what the highlight of the data model is. Feel free, to ask questions. This is a good part. If you say like, if you have certain things like, hey, how would you do this or how would you apply that? Like, let me know what you think. I'll give you a second to digest this. Any questions? John Williams, I'm going to call on you. And John, what I'm going to ask you too is like, based on this model, have you seen something different? Where is it? And how, like, can you explain that or something like that? Great.
Absolutely, and thanks, Jocko. Um, so I am familiar with this model. We leveraged this at a company that I recently was performing sales leadership with. And one of the questions that I had for you is when we are in the CR6 area, this is really an art form to communicate this to the client, because in our experience, we were getting data back from the users, the people actually using it, which was relatively easy. And then sometimes it's a little more difficult to get the feedback you'd like to get, from more on the accounting side of the business, the actual business impact and getting that quantified. So unless you've got an executive sponsor or champion, that can be difficult. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of what you've used in the past to kind of facilitate that part of the conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll give you an idea about that. What we are instructing customer success organizations is to ask them the following question. And what you'll see, what Ken is doing, Ken is the MD of the East Coast, and that the fact that he is, being our administrator right now is highly appreciated when he's typing out some of these things. So Ken, thank you for doing that. The question that I want you to think about asking your customers is, and John, what was the product? What was your original product?
This is a SaaS-based transportation management system.
I'm going to call it, which one do we know? Keep Trucking. Keep Trucking is a transportation system. So I'm going to say it's like, customer, when you originally bought Keep Trucking, may I ask, what did you buy it for? And they say, I bought it in order to help me do X, Y, Z. And then I say, finish the sentence. However, after using it for 6 months, where do you find the most impact? And then the customer tells, I find the most impact here, here, here. Then what I'm doing is I'm feeding that back to the marketing and sales organization. What I need to learn from my customer, and the sentence I use for that, I'll repeat it. When I originally bought product X, I bought it for. However, after using it for 6 months, I see the most value coming out of. When those answers are given, that is the engine that fuels the left side of the bow tie. Many cases, CS is not trained on that. What is CS trained on? The installation didn't go right. I have no login. And we go like, folks, we're not closing the loop. We're having a response desk on the back end. We need to learn how our customers are impacting. In many cases, they're seeing a lot more and a lot better impact where we never thought they would. And so that question is an example of that.
So we had a couple other questions, Jocko. I can read those if you want. I know that.
Pick one of the two.
Can you provide executive insight into the politics of sales versus marketing, SAL? I've often found when marketing is incentivized by SALs, they lower their standard and fight for poorly qualified leads to be SALs.
Yeah. So the problem that you need to solve in any of these data models is that as a company, and you'll see this, in the meantime, I'm trying to pull up some examples. What we do and what we recommend is that you bring this slide up at the beginning of whatever your job is. You define it and you define every step of it. You define what is an MQL, what is an SQL. It doesn't matter what we call it, right? It doesn't have to call it MQL. It could be an inbound lead or something like that. But you have to draw what is the model we're working from. And what it cannot be a list of like a 2-pager on an MQL is. An MQL is somebody who provides an email, phone number, or any other identifier to whom we can contact. That is a form of an MQL description. An SQL is anybody who accepts and is willing to meet with us either in person or nowadays on Zoom. Like, you want to define it that crystal clear so we all understand it. That allows us. Now, that process, if you do that, I found over the years that leads to a lot of complication. That actually leads to a lot of frustration inside companies. Because not to aim towards you, but because they haven't defined it. And that is exactly what we want. Because I want to have that conversation, as fast as humanly possible, in order to make sure that I run that conversation. So that is where we would see that fit in. Define it. Okay. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out to the next part. I'm going to point and say like, hey, what is sustainability? I now know the metrics. Now here, I'm using the general definition of sustainability. It is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the future. That's what this comes down to. I'm going to draw this formula, and you're going to see this formula later on back in the Excel spreadsheets. This is what we are currently using as a sustainability formula. Okay? I'm going to dissect this a little bit, and I'm going to give you an idea on where these things come in from. Most of you are familiar with client acquisition cost, and most of you are familiar with the client acquisition cost because normally what happens is we look at client acquisition cost, and I'm going to give that the blue color and say like, that is the client acquisition cost. And so I'm going to add all marketing, and I'm just doing marketing and sales, M&S, marketing and sales cost, and then divide that by the new wins or something like that over the period. I'm going to add the cost of marketing over the past month, past quarter, past year, divided by the new wins, and that gives me the client acquisition cost. Folks, great number if you're a VC. Super bad number if you are a person managing monthly or quarterly numbers. Because when Dreamforce comes in every year and that marketing budget spikes up, do you really think that the client acquisition cost has radically changed? No, but according to this formula, it should have. Because I just spent 100 grand on Dreamforce in the month of November. And so what you'll see is that, like, look, this is good for like valuation. You're looking at annual growth, stuff like that. This is great. But I can't do anything with this. Furthermore, what we see is that in order to do this, I need something like more refined. And what do I really want it to accomplish? I want to know if my go-to-market strategy really works. I want to know if I am bringing in a client for $2,000, did I do that by charging $5,000, costing me $5,000? Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to separate really two things. If you see down here, essentially, you're going to see this later on back. This often is the SDR or alike cost. This is the AE cost in most cases. And towards the last part is the onboarding cost. Now, if you have an onboarder, a person who does the onboarding, great. Like it's going to cost you X $1,000s a year. If you have an automatic process, click here, lucky you, you're going to have a low onboarding cost. If you are an enterprise rep, then you don't have an SDR potentially, you're gonna be this. If you have a two-stage sales organization, I'm gonna explain this later on to you, you're gonna have those costs. But what you'll see down here is I need these costs aggregated because this tells me how much it will take for me to get live so I can start my recurring revenue engine. What it is on the left, and I'm gonna purposely use a different color in a second, is campaigns. I am going to have here marketing things in campaigns. And so that is the yellow part. I'm going to give that yellow. Now on the back end, where that revenue, recurring revenue is, I'm going to just for the time being going to pull CSM in there. What I want you to think, for those of you who can still remember those days in math class, there was integration and differentiation. These like weird things that we preferably never want to deal with in our lives, unless you're in Jocko's sales class. These are three different domains. They take place at different levels. Campaigns, marketing is measured in campaign cost. Campaign cost runs parallel. Marketing doesn't think about that. AE, sales, thinks in stages. These are serial. CSM are like emergency responders. They don't have a process. They have an air traffic controller. They respond to inbound landing airplanes. So all these three machines operate on a different way of thinking. And by doing this and seeing that, we can start to see that, hey, this makes sense. If I have 10 leads down here, that's going to be handed off to the AE, who after wins hands them off to the onboarding. These three all operate in the same cadence. Campaigns do not, and CSMs do not. I may have a CSM that operates on 500 accounts. I mean, like it's not in direct link with this. We're going to look at sustainability is if I spend more than 40% of combining the salaries of these three on the first year revenue, ACV, annual contract value, and I'm going to say year one, then you are in an unsustainable mode. Similarly, if you spend more than 10% of the ACV in the first year on generating the amount of leads needed to get there, it's unsustainable. So I'm going to give you examples later on how this works. I just want to set the stage that you understand, hey, this is the growth model. Furthermore, if you are ACV year 2 and 3, go to the CSMs. This means that if your AE closes a multi-year agreement, you should not pay them on the multi-year agreement, because you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're taking the money out of the deal that the CSM should be paid by. So that, like, I want you to make sure that you are, that you keep this in mind. This is the thought that you're seeing. Doesn't mean that, hey, if somebody closes a 1-year deal, should they be more paid for a 2-year deal? Of course, pay them 1.1 times the deal size for year 1. And if they do it 3 years, great, pay them 1.25 the deal size. But don't pay 3x on year 1, because you're giving away all the money that the CSMs need. Now, historically, this wasn't needed. You know why? Historically, renewals was not a big thing, and we're like 4 people in a corner who are sending out renewal notices. But nowadays, we have an account management organization. We have an annual event with the client. We have newsletters. We have campaigns. I mean, there's so much stuff on that back end. It's an entire organization supported by marketing and sales that needs to run. They need to have funding. In particular, as I'm going to show you later on, because that's where you're generating your profit. And so if you're defunding CSMs, you're defunding your profit engine. Big statement. Multi-year contracts. The salespeople are not going to get paid on that. They're going to get accelerated. They're going to get spiffed on that, but not paid on that. And if you think about it in SaaS, why would you? Because there's a reasonable chance in today's world that that client churned 15 months in. Well, you just paid your salesperson for 36 months. Like, did you account for that, right? There is an exception. Cash up front, multi-pay year, I would accelerate that. I would be even willing to pay 1.3x or something like that. I would be willing to stretch, but I would have my finance team calculate that out for me. I see a question from David. Based on this model, is there concern of enterprise attrition for an enterprise play where they find the initial deal? Can you explain that, David? Just if you unmute, I'm not too fluent in English, so sometimes when the words get complicated, I get.
Yeah, so I love this. This is great. As far as sustainability and CAC and all that stuff makes sense. I'm always curious of if you've got, let's say, a play that's an enterprise play in that segment, so it's an upmarket play, but the initial deal with Google, let's say, is $15K, but we know there's a $15 million deal. It says that there's going to take, let's call $15K a phase 1. And back to that LTV, we're working with the CSM, we're collaborating with to make sure that the adoption, the DAOs and MAOs and all that is in play, but that the bigger deal is downstream. If you cut the AE off of just a 1 year, and again, I don't know relationship-wise, if they keep that account or if they kick it over to the CSM, and then they lose that account, does that then play into a risk of attrition for an enterprise AE who's like, I'm not going to make my money?
Yes. Where this example really applies, those of you who are familiar with advertisement sales, you get an initial IO of a client, and that is like a $30,000 test IO, which doesn't mean a lot, but that client can turn into a multi-million-dollar deal. What you see how to solve for that, David, is that you essentially put a price on that logo. Logo is a sizable client, or logo of Google is X. That is worth $20,000 to me if you win that on an IO. And so rather than thinking of it as a percentage, you put a target value of that. Your finance department will define what the value of each logo is as they hand it out to the accounts. And that gives the AE a fixed value that they're going to get. And they know that. Then in those cases, and particularly with I remember at Liftoff, it was Carl who closed, we want to celebrate winning Amazon. But to win Amazon across, Amazon Music, Amazon, Prime, all those stuff, takes an entire team. So suddenly the team then after the win comes in becomes an account management team, which may include 5, 6, 7 people that are trying to broaden and help and support Amazon. and then the deal is won. And that goes all into the green part. Then the 20% starts to kick in to pay for all those people. But in that case, we put a fixed dollar figure on that, securing that win that AE is comfortable with.
So sorry, just for clarity then, so the
Yep.
$30,000 in the Amazon example, so that would be acquiring one of the, call it 10 different Amazon logos. Just basically getting a contracted foot in the door, trial period or whatever, and then everything beyond that $30,000 to the AE goes to the other organization.
That's right. Now imagine if we do that, Chris, I may close a $20,000 IO and I may pay the salesperson $10,000 on that, right? The salesperson would never get, like there's no company who would pay $10,000 on a $10,000 deal. But in IO world, that can be because it's an opening, right? Often they open up the IO and it's like, they can easily extend it to $1 million. It's just, like a single email that they send out, please increase the IO to 1 million, and then suddenly that deal pops. All we want to make sure is that we know what the value is of a client that can bring. And this, what you see here, and you see this very, becoming more and more, the intelligence team up front, the data intelligence team that sits here will calculate out what the approximate price range is and what the value is of prospective targets we're going after. And there's intelligence that happens here, and this is really good. They're looking at like how many seats, how much, like what is the average spend per client that they have, how much are they spending on competitors. And so they're coming in and saying like, look, that client could be X value, and therefore we're going to pay you a tier 1 price of X thousand dollars for a tier 1, X thousand dollars for a tier 2. And that way the AE is done right. What happens, which is really when it goes wrong, is the AE thinks like, hey, I just spent $30,000. Let's say I take 10% commission of sale. That's $3,000 wide. Oh, the year later, the customer spends like $1.5 million in ad. Hey, you owe me $150,000 in commission. Like, no, folks, that is unattainable. That ain't gonna work, right? That model is not built that way. The profit is not in that deal at that range. And so, like people who come from one world to another then suddenly see this model fail and go like, no, you got to think that through. This is not necessarily commission drop, but go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of valuing a client beyond the revenue, that would be a challenge for the last pre-IPO companies that I work for that are even pre-Series A, quite frankly. The ability to pay revenue ahead, the ability to pay expanded commission ahead of revenue would have been a real challenge for them. And so, I was in cybersecurity SaaS as opposed to advertising, so that additional order may not come as easily. So I get the rationale, but a lot of entrepreneurs are going to have a hard time paying and valuing the customer on potential rather than reality. In other words, if you mentioned like paying a $10,000 commission on a $20,000 initial order with the company has a potential for $1 million follow-on. So the entrepreneurs I work for would not be able to do that. They, both emotionally and financially, they would not be able to do that.
Here's how they most commonly do that in that world. I want you to understand that model that you're describing is essentially stacked against the risk model that salespeople have. Essentially what we're saying is like, hey, look, as a salespeople, I'm going to pay you 150 base, 100K on top of that variable. I want you to take the risk on that variable, and I want you to have absolutely no track history of what we're going to score, and yet you have to make that. And then you're going to go like, okay, I'll take that risk, right? Now, historically, risk is built as follows. If I have a lot of money at risk when I miss the number, I should be able to accelerate it when I exceed the number. This form of compensation, which I don't want to go too deep in, has completely disrupted, has completely been lost. I want you to think of the first salespeople who join a startup are not salespeople. They are business development people. They shouldn't be put on commission. Commission is when you have a track record and you have an understanding of what the bench strength is. What is approximately a region delivering or an account? What is the growth? Because then we can model it and then we can talk to the salesperson and say, here's successful. If we're sending out the first 3 salespeople for a company, there's a forest, here's your bow and arrow, you know, like go out. Those are business development people. And often they're superstars. And, you know, like we should embrace those people because that's like really difficult. But they shouldn't be working on a you know, like red meat eating salary. And then what I mean with red meat eating you know, kill to eat, right? If you don't kill deals, then you're not going to hit your target. And that is a very disturbing development in sales when you do that. Just call them business development. That's the reason why your founder and generally is the best salesperson. Okay, I'll move on from this. There's a lot more that's coming to us. We have calculations. I want to make sure we get to that. I'll skip this for now. I'll leave that later on. What I want to talk is about the go-to-market model, product-led growth. I'm going to stake you through step by step, product-led growth. Product-led growth, primarily the customer acts and behaves as the marketing and sales function. That's what product-led growth is. I'm so excited. I always talk about superhuman. And I can provide a referral. Everybody says I cannot get into X. Send me a note. I can get you into it. I'm marketing and sales. One stage typically is an inside sales rep who gets the lead, does the discovery call and the demo call, and closes it. That's a one stage. Two stage, an SDR vets a client either through inbound and outbound, probably through email call, and sets up a discovery call for an AE who then goes through the sales process. Field sales. Field sales and two stage can often be confused. Field sales should be a person who gets 30 to 50 accounts. It gets a limited amount of accounts. We can argue about the exact number, but I don't want it too big. It's not 500. They get a limited amount of accounts in a particular region, and in that region, they are tasked to develop their own leads. There's a reason for that. But they live in Northeast. You know, often the biggest one will start as East Coast, West Coast, right? Those are becoming field salespeople. Account sales. When I used to work for Technicolor and Tandberg, account sales, think of that. I was the account executive on behalf of all of VeriSign to all of Disney. I knew everyone at Disney. I don't need leads of lead agent. What I need to find is projects inside Disney. And so a cold outbound campaign, ABM campaigns, all that didn't really help me. I need to know and I need to network. You already know all the four-letter call stations in North America. You already know the 7 broadcasters, the top telcos, and the people in there. That is account management. Often, in this case, you have such a huge quota, a $10 million quota, a $1 million quota, that you live close to the facilities. Like, you know, I was to Dish EchoStar every week, almost every other week, more or less, 2 days, right, in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That's what you're working on, but it delivers you $10 million a year. Account management. These are 5 different go-to-market strategies. The point is, if I'm selling to EchoStar $1 billion, you know, satellite uplink station, I'm not going to have a product-led growth strategy. I'm going to have some example. I'm going to have some benefits from this, but it ain't going to be like click here, accept that. Oh, I'll ship you $10 million worth of equipment. It ain't going to work, right? And what you see down here as well is, if these people go out, they're not waiting for just inbounds. They have to go out and develop. And so what happens here is that you essentially, when you look at these 5, you're mapping them based on the cost against annual contract value. And so what you'll see down here is I'm mapping all of these. Now look at the bottom there, you see some of these numbers, and what you'll see, right, at those numbers, I'm popping them up, $5,000. These are averages, you know, like dependent on which region, which product could be vary a little bit. But product-led growth is not going to go up to $50,000 necessarily. And so what you'll see down here, we're staging them correctly horizontally. Vertically, what you'll see is for product-led growth to work, I got to sell thousands of a month. And for strategic accounts to work, I got to have like maybe I have like 5 deals a year, but the volume is radically different. And so exactly, Slack is a great example that Jessica points out. Slack is a great example for product-led growth on the left. When you have like a platform sales, a CRM, you see that in the beginning, Salesforce really was in 1 stage, maybe even a 2 stage. But today, Salesforce operates a full base field sales organization. They're not just sitting there waiting for inbound calls. They have like large key accounts, even key accounts. They have a number of large key accounts, right? And so you'll see that. What you'll see is we're going to map, and this is important, we're going to map the marketing go-to-market stages against that. Now, I simplify this, and we have several marketing specialists on the call. I'm just, like using some freedom here. Right, this is the point where I go like, and everybody go like, ding. Okay, and what you'll see down here is I'm going to define inbound and outbound by the way, typically how we're going to go out. In this case, I'm going to create one-to-many, one-to-few, and one-to-one. One-to-one, referral. One-to-few, targeting, ABM campaigns. One-to-many, SDR-based 1,000 calls a month kind of outbound. So I'm thinking about that along those lines. What you're going to find is that they map approximately against that. You're going to see, I'm not going to use an SDR outbound organization combined with product-led growth. It's just not going to make sense. There's some overlap, and where that overlap starts and ends, that we're going to try to calculate later on. This is your product, this is your go-to-market strategy. This should be mapped beyond the scope of today's agenda with the CSM-based go-to-market strategy. I'll just leave it at this because otherwise I have 3 dimensions and then all of you are going to freak out. Okay, and so what I'm going to see down here is that this, not because you don't know it, but because I freak out teaching it. Don't get me wrong. It's getting really complicated. And so what you'll see down here is this is the model that we're going to work from. This is historically the model that we saw in action. Up till pre-COVID, this was what everybody was working off. And as I showed you in a second, this is what collapsed. That is your go-to-market model. So now what I have the data model. I know the bow tie, sustainability numbers. I know where I'm going to look for client acquisition cost, cost to serve, and where I'm going to go cost per lead. And now I just gave you the go-to-market model. Hey, there's different ways on how we're going to tackle markets. Those are the first couple of models I want us to wrap our head around. Love it. See, it works. I see ping going on the left. Okay. I want to let you know it's going to get complicated. Get ready. It's math. The reason why it's math, I'm going to stop you for a second. I want you to envision, if you go back 20 years pre-SaaS, whatever dollar value your SaaS contract is right now, multiplied by 5 to 10 is when people like Jack Jaffe, many of us, I'm looking for other people who I know for a while. That's what we used to sell those contracts at $1 million, right? And generally $500,000, $1 million, right, Jack? If I see some other folks who would know that, where some of the others. But we know that those were perpetual contracts, sizable meaning. And those therefore, the growth all came up front. When the moment I sold a 3-year contract, I got a like a $2 million deal. Like I was out of that deal like 3 weeks after the deal was done. I polite call, maybe if I was in town, invite them for dinner. But recurring didn't exist. Growth model didn't exist. I want you to know that since that changed, a lot of things have not changed. A lot of things still stay the same. The way how we comp people, the way how recruiters start hiring people, like all that stuff, has not changed. That we're going to find in the growth model. We're going to use the data model, the bow tie. What I'm going to point out is that the first metric and the first mistake that we're making is we're thinking in a volume metric world. We are measuring things. How many deals did we win? How many MQLs did marketing organize? How much MRR did we generate? How much onboarding clients did we onboard? We measure things. Many people, therefore, act and behave, organizations act and behave as if we're in an additive world. In other words, in order for me to get twice as amount of MQLs, I need twice as many campaigns. I need to buy more lists to get more campaigns. If I want to double my sales and I use 10 salespeople to get to 100 million, then I'm going to need 20 salespeople to get to 200 million. We think about it that way. Next is the conversion metric world. We're going to see the efficiency. What does it take? What is the win rate? What's the churn? Many of us and many of you who are involved in SaaS have already moved to this world. Hey, it's important. I want to know what the conversion metric is. What is the MQL to win rate? What's the SQL to win rate? And so you start to think about how many X does it take to get me to Y? So this is important to realize. However, SaaS business does not work neither on an additive nor on an form. What they work on is on an exponential impact. Because the moment in time that I start multiplying prospects gets me to MQLs, gets me to that, I'm starting to multiply CR1 times CR2 times CR3 times CR4 times CR5. And the moment I do that, if I do CR and I put the symbol in front of it, you are in the world of exponential. Then, when I look at the back end, I am seeing that things renew. That means my exponential impact from up front is now being compounded. It creates a closed loop. That I like to visualize. So all of us understand, like, how does this look? This additive, this product, this exponential, this compound. Now, exponential and compound are the same on a 1-year basis if I have a 1-year contract. However, if I have a 5-year contract, I'm going to see compound X, Y, Z, and I'm going to see that the compound is significantly bigger than the exponential impact. This understanding between what is green, blue, and pink is the biggest misunderstanding we have in any company. 9 out of 10 companies, I can tell you, the founder doesn't get it. The only one who may get it is the chief financial officer. Most people do not understand the difference between the blue and the pink. And most people operate their business on the green. That's your challenge in SaaS sales. And what you find is that your organization, sales organizations, act and behave as an exponential function, yet we treat them as either an additive or a multiplicative function. And your customer success organization is treated in most cases as an additive function. And it operates full and wholeheartedly in a compound function. Therefore, you hear, well, what will it cost? If we take out one CSM, what will it cost us? And they go like, well, we save $80,000. And then we calculate it out. It just cost you $4 million. You saved $80,000. It cost you $4 million. And they go like, show me the calculation. Here it is. And they go like, oh, yes, because it is compound impact. The reason why is human beings have the inability to remember compound impact. They just can't comprehend it. It's not in our nature to do that. We're really good at additive. We're really good at even multiplying. Exponential is going to get iffy, but compound, we just cannot do it. And for those of you who ever watch your Amazon bill grow every month, just don't try to think compound because you know that you're going to be broke soon. Okay. Questions, thoughts? Give me a thumbs up if you got this, or give me a thumbs up if this rings through that yeah, there you go. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Oh, you want to make sure that this is the problem that most of us are dealing with right now. And I'm going to try to explain this in a spreadsheet. And this is how the spreadsheet function works. Year 1, I get $100,000. I upgraded or churn 2% and increase by 8%. The new dollar value is $106,000. What I want you to think about here is this. This is just a quick terminology. Churn is 2%. The mathematical formula is that it is 98%. It's retention, 1 minus churn. So if I do 100,000 and I churn 2%, I get $98,000. Similarly, upsell, we create a flat percentage in that, but it's essentially 1 plus the upsell. So it's 108%. So if I do 100 times that is 108 times that, I end up, if you apply those two in the correct formula, you're going to end up at $106,000. What I want you to see, if I go to this model, if I have a 1-year contract, I saw the notes. And the notes were if I wanted to keep some of this alive. So I'm going to do that. Sorry, some of you commented, can you keep the notes in there? Yes. So if I have a 1-year contract and the client churns, that it acts and behaves as this. It doesn't, compound impact doesn't take effect. A 1-year contract paid up front acts and behaves like this. It means there's no compound. You're not upgrading because they're churning. And so what you're going to see is that left to right, the money you get out of this client can be calculated as a straight exponential function. And this therefore is a function of CR1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I can tell you, let me see if I can run a calculator. Google. I'm just going to Google it. I've never done this. 1.1 to the power of 7. Type it out. 1.1 to the power of 7. Yes. 1.1 to the power of 7. 10% improvement equals 1.1. 1.1 across 7 metrics. So across across 7 metrics, 1.1 across 7 metrics, 10% improvement across the line. 10% improvement means we go from 20% winning rate to 22% winning rate. 10% improvement means we go from a 10% conversion in CR1 to 11% conversion. If I make small adjustments of 10% all across the line, I'm going to get 2x revenue out of that. That's what this says. That's how exponential it works. That means if your salesperson, if your CEO says, I need to do 2x revenue, the first gut reaction is, I need 2x the leads. Doesn't. We need more leads, 10%. We need better conversion rate, 10%. We need a better, let's say I'm using this 2-stage, better SDR conversion rate. I need a better win rate. I need to improve my handoff. I need to decrease my discount level. And when you add that all up, you got 2x. Nobody said I need 2 times the leads. 2 times the leads will actually can have the opposite impact, as we all know. I'm going to get shitty leads and my whole machine goes down. I have more people working harder because they have to, the quality of the machine goes down, and you're going to spin out of control. And so what you're going to see, what this formula, exponential impact, shows, that compound impact. What you'll see is if the horizontal line is exponential impact, compound impact means it then carries forward to year 2, then it happens again, and to year 3, then it happens again. Now, in this case, if I start improving this to 9% and decreasing that number to 1%, it starts to accelerate, and it compounds accelerate. This is the reason why monthly contracts are so beneficial, because I'm not compounding to the power of 3, I'm compounding to the power of 36. And I can tell you, and let me see what it looks like. If I grow 10%, 1.1 every year for a 3-year contract, that is 130, this, right? If I see 1.02 to the power of 36, I'm going to get like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get double. That means I increase every month 2%. So I know, hey, I like this high. I like it to get to 36 and with improvement down here. The problem, however, is platforms don't sell that way. You can't sell a platform on a monthly contract. Think about it. Think of a platform, Gainsight, Marketo, I'll pick Gainsight. Do you really think that your client is going to add 2 CSMs every month? If you do, monthly contracts. If they're going to stick with 8 CSMs, next year's 10 CSMs, maybe 14, your monthly contract is not going to compound quick enough. You're better off overcharging for the seats, saying, hey, I sell you up to 10 seats, up to 20 seats, because you're not going to have that compound impact. If you're going to sell something on top of that, hey, we're going to add, how do you call that? You're consuming stuff, you're consuming bandwidth, and so on, and you're going to charge that. That's the world of compound. That's the ideal world. Slack knew that because they were growing, and I'm going to go in a team of 10, maybe engineers, and I'm going to end up being in every seat in every company. And so they go 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000. So their compound impact works really well. If you're Marketo, you're growing with as fast as the amount of companies are growing, and across the board, that is not a lot of compound impact. So you're better off with a platform price. All that sits right in this formula, in this world down here. Compound impact cannot be indicated in the formula. If you, for example, if I go to a spreadsheet, in order to create compound impact, I'll just create some sheet somewhere. And I'm going to zoom in. This is just a random sheet. Don't look at all the other numbers. In order for me to create compound impact, I got to type the following formula: equals future value. And then I start entering that. That's how you create compound impact. There's not a mathematical symbol that says, oh, X to the power of Y or something like that. And that's the reason why it leads to a number of challenges. Future value is how your mortgage is calculated, how your car payments are calculated if you're on a lease. This is all financial modeling behind the scenes.
So, Jocko, I'm hung up on the definition of platform. So, and I'm like a software architect kind of guy from background. So when you say platform, though, you mean one instance per company.
I love that description. I may steal that, Chris. I may steal that. I love that. One instance per company, yes.
So like when I was at Cisco, we had 15 different instances of Salesforce. So I would think of Salesforce as a platform, but over time that normalized and integrated back into one. So I know it's probably a corner case, but
no, you nailed it. A platform, and it's, you know, like it's a CRM, it's a marketing automation system, it's ERPs. These are all platforms, and I like the whole one instance. And you know, you can sell multiple instances inside Disney, and then sooner or later, the CFO goes like, "Why are we doing this?" They're rolling it all into one, and stuff like that. An application is typically something you install on top of, and sometimes you see an application becoming a platform, like Outreach. Or SalesLoft, in the beginning, there were applications that worked with your email system. And nowadays, you see them more trending to become a platform.
Okay. So if you had a developer go-to-market model, just call it Twilio, anybody can build on it. So they would be in the once per month category as opposed to the once per 12 months category.
Yes. And what you're seeking to know that you're doing the right thing, is there small growth every month in usage that you can charge again, or and later on I'm going to tell you the usage needs to be reviewed, but I want to make sure that if there's small growth a little bit every month, then you're way better off with a 36 period. This is not a conversation we can just have on the fly, you know, as part of a 2-hour session. This by itself is an entire day of explaining and working and trying to determine your price, because this is where profit is generated.
Jocko, just to be clear, when you're talking about that upsell increase, you've got to be adding something of value 1 year, but then you've got to be adding in that additional value the following year, totally different from that new foundational level that you've set, whether it's additional functionality that you can justify the additional expense for, new features, adding new people to the platform or users within that organization, correct?
Correct. I'm going to say the following, and if there's one line that you take away from today, this is going to be that line. I'm going to retype. I'm just using that line as a headliner. Recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact. If you do not deliver recurring impact, extra seat, and extra seat means another person gets enabled. But if you do an extra usage, new dashboard, new something exciting, for sakes, the new color scheme that makes me happy, whatever it is, recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact. Most companies don't realize that.
But so would you say also then that compounding growth models equals compounding impact?
The reason why, no, I would say that profit is the result of compounding impact. So profit is the outcome. If I keep recurring impact, therefore I keep recurring revenue, therefore it compounds, therefore I get profit. Now, I'll give a quick and easy understanding. I'm going to use this line down here, okay? So again, I'm going to copy this because the request was, can I make sure that my notes remain in here? So if you see me do that, then know that I'm responding to your needs. So what I'm going to draw down here, let's say that these lines down here are years, okay? Think about this. Now, I'm going to extend my contract from year, what is it, needs to be year 2 to year 3 right now, right? Look just at the pink line for now. I'm going to extend the contract from year 2 to year 3, or year 2 to year 3. Now, I want you to know that if what the meaning of compound is, that if I extend from year 3 to year 4, up, I need to draw all this. I know that is a hash sign. I think everybody realizes that should be a 3. I want you to know that there's another symbol that I'm looking for, is the horizontal line. Now I want you to take a look at that horizontal line and that delta that is being created. In here, if I expand from year 2 to year 3, the difference between these two lines is the amount of profit. Think of this as profit that I generate. Now look how much profit I am generating between the year 2 cross-section and the year 3 cross-section. There's a disproportionate amount of profit generated with the length of the contract. If you think of this as an average of SaaS contracts, many people would say on average is about 28 months, right? If you see, if this is the extension, and I'm zoomed in on that, right? Don't think that as literally, I know that the scales are off. Think of it as if I'm zoomed in on that pink line. This is the difference between why a single month extension of an average lifetime value creates a disproportionate amount of profit. The understanding of this puts all the effort on, hey, are we winning the right deals? Because if we're not winning the right deals, we're not getting here. Second is our customer success team aware of this? Now I can draw the formula up to you, and the formula sounds something like this. Profit is the function of monthly recurring revenue plus minus the churn plus the upsell to the power compounded of the length of the contract. In that number, sales only controls MRR. Customer success controls churn, upsell, length of the contract in periods.
So Jocko, this is profit. I think where I got lost was it isn't just purely revenue. This is profit because you're actually doing less. There's less cost to be able to get more. So I think that's helpful.
Great. Yeah. What I started to say, I think where I hopefully have most of you right now, and where I may have lost some of you, but this is fine. Don't worry too much about where you exactly got lost. I want you to understand that suddenly the world has opened up to you. If I got you right, then you go like, sales is totally different than this is math. This is like thinking about the future. This is the future of sales, what you see here. The ability to represent this and to have this conversation in the boardroom, to understand where the profit comes from and how to generate it, is going to be the key skill set of the future revenue leaders. Not, hey, are we hiring the right people? Are we hitting quota? What's our comp structure? Like, that's operations people. Hand it off to HR, director of operations. Folks, I couldn't be bothered by that as much. I know it's important. We'll compensate people according to market value. Top 10 percentile, top 25 percentile, great. Calculated out finance. This is where growth comes from. And if you don't 100% understand it, perfectly fine. Dig into it, chew on it. This is the key for me to develop an enthusiasm and an encouragement for people to say, like, I get where this is going, and I know that this formula is what essentially drives sales. I'm gonna draw this through a few simple arrows and lines down here. And I need some help, and you preferably, if you can, every now and then verbalize. You don't have to be right. What I would love to do is build on what somebody is saying, not necessarily because they're right, but because it triggers something. So I get some recurring impact down here. Okay, so what do I need to do here to get? What do I need? If this is star number 5, how do I get to star? What do I have to do in star number 4 to make sure that I reach star number 5? And I'm going to give you the trick. The word is impact. What do I have to achieve down here? I like the word early win, set expectations, and both are actually very spot on. Adoption, yeah. So I'm going to say all these things are right. There's no wrong there. Time to value, it's spot on. I'm going to say first impact. I'm going to just define that and go like, dude, I got these people to get a taste of what that impact looks like. And that creates adaptation, that creates time to value, all these things that you mentioned. First impact, I saw it there by Jessica. And so what you see down here, I got to get them I got to get this machine running so they can experience the impact. Now I'm going to teach you, for example, what we can do in that. I'm going to teach the CSMs that when you are onboarding an account, you're going to reestablish with the client what the impact is that they want. This is key. They're not just going to say, oh, let me onboard you. I was onboarded by some electronic signing company the other day. Okay, here's how you drag and drop your signature. Like seriously, like I got 30 of my people on the phone right now to learn how to drag and drop. Show me impact. So what we're going to do down here, we're going to tell the CSMs, ask your client, and I'm using a platform, if they have monthly executive meetings. When you get that, ask them approximately if that is the first Monday every month. If you do that, then you know when you are going to send them an impact report, because I'm going to schedule in my system that their meeting, their exec meeting, minus 2 days, I'm going to send them a report on what the impact is that our product has provided. We have an easy to understand diagram and 2 or 3 key takeaways. Example, Slack. Now, I'm an executive and I'm on Monday, most often this is a Monday, and I'm sitting on Sunday night and I have to conclude my deck. And on Friday, I got a message from one of my providers that says, hey, your product has really performed. We have 2 people left, 3 people joined. On average, we helped you generate $1.2 million. Folks, I'm going to port that straight away to my monthly report because I go like I got that available. What you now see is I'm starting to report your impact and make that coming into my monthly report schedule. That is establishing recurring impact on executive level. Now, what do we want to report? You want to think careful about that, what that is. So it's extremely valuable and you can keep the trend up and up. This is a thought. Second, what I can do down here is I can signal as the CSM, folks, about 9 months into the current contract, I'm going to expect that your impact is you're going to see some of that flatten out. And the reason is for, like there's a I forgot what there's a term for it. It's going to happen. In order to achieve that, I want you to think about X, Y, Z, and most likely Marianne on our team will reach out to you at that point in time to see if she can help you with an upsell, cross-sell to get you there. You are completely orchestrating right in this moment the journey, the impact, you're putting that in, and so on and so forth, and you're telling them when to expect the upsell, cross-sell. That is how you generate star number 5. Now I'm going to go to star number 4, and I'm going to go like, what do I have to do here? And it has to do with the word impact. Now what you're going to find down here, and I'm going to keep it, I know we're running a little late, so I'm going to say down here is, you're going to price against impact. I'm going to charge you $100,000, and for which you're going to get $500,000 worth of impact. Just calculate the impact statistic, boom, there you go. That's now what you're going to find is customer who have a bigger impact should pay a bigger price. That could be the case. Now here I'm going to drive you to follow and understand. I'm going to give you a quick sidebar here. And that sidebar was very useful with a previous group I ran this with. Historically, we have gone through 3 stages, and most of us are still stuck in stage 1. In stage number 1, we were budget. Customers were made, we believed that customers were making decisions on budget. And so what you see down here, companies who are still in that are using a form of band, annum, or something like that. Anything that has the word budget in it. Because they determine budget is the key decision factor. In SaaS, that is not the case. When you bought a $100 million IBM computer system in the late 60s, 70s, that was an issue. That's the reason why band was invented. Today, it's not necessarily the case. Budget, a $20,000 service, you cannot tell me that the company doesn't have money for that. Like we're about a 50 to 60 person company. We can spend that. Like you cannot tell me that a $500,000 company cannot find $20,000 worth of budget. They can. Second, after this is, I would say, band still is in, but like SaaS companies started to realize that their play is on ROI. And so they realized, you know what? If I compete against SAP, then the ROI of SAP selling you $1 million solution versus me selling you $50,000 annual, my ROI is going to be a lot better. So the ROI became really, and the 10x ROI became the big driver for SaaS businesses. And that worked really well for a long time. Most companies are still here. They're teaching their sales teams this. But you guess what, where we're at today? If you go talk to a buyer, they're deciding on 50 SaaS different services. Maybe larger companies have hundreds of them. It is no longer ROI. It is priority. When do we need this now, or can we wait? And every SaaS service says, oh, our ROI is wonderful. So from a buyer perspective, your ROI doesn't mean anything. It means is which building is on fire right now and needs some hosing down. That is a fluctuating thing. That is not like, not the building is always on fire. The shed may be on fire. You know, like the kitchen is on fire or the entire house is on fire. Most sales organization, and to give you an idea, this is like Medic fits in this category, and so on and so forth. This isn't, we do not have a particular thing for it. We call it ICE, impact and critical event. But, you know, like you'll see down here is, this is the progression of how we are selling, because SaaS is sold based on a different pricing model. Okay, so helpful? Yeah, got it. All the way through down here, and I'm going to get to the point, and the point is clear. It should be clear. Find businesses that you can impact. You need to, upfront down here, you need to find people you can impact. Down here, you need to qualify. How much can we impact? Down here, you need to demonstrate value-based, how much impact it is. You get them to first impact, you deliver the impact. The thing that goes from left to right is impact. Not MQL, then SQL, then win, then commit. All that stuff is like the in-between steps. Your entire company should be focused on delivering impact. We showed this recently to the GuideSpark team. And the head of engineering was in that call and goes like, this tells me now what I need to do with my product. It tells me why certain features are valid. Can it deliver impact? And sometimes a simple feature, big impact. Sometimes a complex feature, little impact. Like, think about the impact. And sometimes that little impact feature is needed to unlock all kinds of future impact. That's a platform decision, that's fine too. But you gotta think about this. Recurring revenue is a result of recurring impact. In sales, your ability to educate this to the executive team and to take them through this journey is the key that not only will get you a job, that's not what I'm focused on necessarily with this, it gets you the freaking right job. Because anybody that doesn't resonate with this, I'm going to tell you, 6 to 18 months from now, somebody is going to be fired. Why? Quota wasn't met. Yeah, dude, you doubled the quota on me the moment I joined because my comp plan was high. Your quota is disproportionately related to the location where you live in. And I can tell you why. Because if you're from the Bay Area, you need 350 versus Denver where you need 250. If you're going to be charging 350 as a VP of sales, I'm going to make the quota higher. So the quota is related to where I live. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Math. Anyway, sidebar. Okay, I'm wrapping up and speeding up a bit. I'm wrapping up. Here's the historic benchmark data. Oh, you're gonna get all this. There's a book that I've written around this that you can buy. You know, like, I'm not trying to sell you a book. You know, thank you, Ken. Thank you. I feel like Ken is like the mannequin mister that is walking around with the book.
In fact, let me jump in here and say, you can email Sari or me, and we're happy to send you a copy.
Yes, the point is, like, we're not here to sell you books.
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to see down here, this in marketing lingo is referred to as lead to opportunity, LTO. And it's 2 conversion rates. And what you see down here at 20K, 20% times 20% is the renowned 4% that you're familiar with. And 4% means the amount of prospects it takes to get me to, in this case, an SQL. What you see down here is the handoff. This only applies in the 2-stage. So when I have an SDR who hands it off to an AE, I'm looking at this. For example, if I have a super high handoff rate of 99% and a super low close rate, which is CR4, then I know, folks, you know, like, the wind is open, everything is blowing through, nobody's qualifying anything, we're considering everything. If I see that there's a balance, about 80% gets through and we close about 22% or something like that right here, then I know we are running a good organization. It's balanced with each other. And so we know, based on these 2 metrics, whether the SDR and AE are healthy. For those of you who remember the movie Oblivion, This is where we ask, are you still a good couple? Yes, we're still a good couple. And we look at the metrics and go like, yes, great couple. If this is the most common mistake, if you see that the SDRs have a really low, like they're in the 60s, but CR4, the win rates are like in the high 90s, in the high like 30s or 40s, then what you're seeing is your AE is starving your SDR. They only want ready to close deals. This is the most common mistake that we see. And the SDR is just like treated as an admin, like, no, I don't want that. No, don't want that. And we go like, the word selling actually means you have to do something. You have to convince something, right? So that's the win rate. Sometimes combined, if I'm a field sales organization, you combine these two. What you see here at the higher end, you're going to recognize the comfortable enterprise 1 in 3 wins. What you see is that the handoff essentially is super high. Why? Because as an AE, you're handing it off to yourself. So it's essentially is like, yeah, I already knew it was qualified. That was why I called it on. That's why the handoff is so high there. Towards the end, this is we spoke about it. Monthly versus platform versus and so on. Your typical annual contracts and your typical monthly compound, where the compound effect takes most effect. We can have long debates on these topics, so I just leave that as is. I want to let you go and want to get to the conclusion of why we're here together today. So far, does everybody get this? As far, 80% I'm happy, 60, 70, 80% I'm happy. But I just want to make sure, give me a thumbs up. Yes, thank you, Carter. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Good, good, good. Now people know, why does Jocko need the Red Bull? This is the Red Bull.
It's a kind of magic. It's a kind of magic.
It is magic. I wanted to, like I'll sidebar. I would relish in the opportunity of the following. When you go back, I don't know, 100, 200 years ago, before the medical trade was established, the difference between a doctor and a voodoo was really, like they would be equally treated. Because treating somebody, somebody would say, like, hey, the leg is broken. The other person would say, you need to have some more shrubs of this and that, right? We still live in the time that sales is still treated part magic, and we're still in that voodoo, and part, like science. I want all of you to hopefully embrace and go like, look, forget the voodoo part. Like, forget it. Let's go to the math. And then every now and then, okay, voodoo something, but not the model, please. Voodoo, like how you had a great conversation with a client. Voodoo that, how you engaged and mirrored the conversation. Voodoo that, but not the model. Okay, the good old days are over. As we have now, I saw that recently in a tweet about LinkedIn and its changing algorithms. And Jake Kozłowski wrote, the good old days are over. They are. 3 groups. Pro users sit often at that lower end. SMB, we often map that to the middle end, and enterprise map to the high end. Just for all of us who are in enterprise sales, selling a $20,000 deal to Nike is not an enterprise deal. Enterprise deal means that you are going through multiples, like group-wide, something like of significance, not just because the customer is an enterprise. I see Chris Bodding laugh, knowing in full well what I mean with that. So SMB sales...
They're done there.
Yeah, they've done that, exactly. It generally is gatekept by the buying process. So if an SMB has multi-tier decision process, but is categorized in SMB, it acts and behaves as an enterprise. Okay, I want you to realize that. What I want you to think about is based on today, if I take simply this example down here, that the good old days metrics is that my CR, what you saw before, that getting to an SQL came in at 2 to 4%. That the SDRs on average generated 25 SQLs. My win rate was somewhere between 20 and 30%. My SDR salary, go back 5 years, okay, not today, go back a few years, $40,000. The AE cost me $8,000, and the sequence lengths I had was in 6 taps. I want to demonstrate to you the impact that this is having to us. Because as much as we can positively impact, This is the reason why many VPs of sales today are losing their job or are not completely are part of things. Okay,
Sorry, you lost me on taps. What are taps?
Taps are touches. I'm trying to avoid that I either favor outreach or sales loft. And by any word that I use, one of them will get upset at me for not using their terminology in a class or something like that. It means an email, a phone call, a social tap.
Okay.
You have no idea what, you know, it's like soccer teams
It's like a gender neutral term kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll fly with that. Okay. For those of you who are going to work with my Excel spreadsheet, I do the following. Blue cell means I manually entered it. Green cell is I refer to it. So if I see down here, I'm going to say I picked up that 260K from there. I manually entered that 260K. Red cell means I pulled it off sheet. So you probably know, oh, it came from another sheet. Black cell means I calculated that on it. I remove almost all formatting styles, no color bars. These are the only 4 colors I use. At the bottom line means I sum something up. It's very, you know, we use Western style, left to right, top to bottom. So what I'm going to do down here, I'm going to say an average AE costs $240,000. I'm selling a $50,000 product. That means that I'm going to use probably a solution architect, a sales engineer to close that. The salary of that combined is $390,000. I'm not using the onboarding yet. We'll come back to that later. If I use my sustainability index, sustain index, then I mean that that team needs to bring in year 1, $975,000 in order to remain scalable. With me? Now, if I hand out $1 million quota, in that case, and I give them a $50,000 annual contracts, I apply a discount of 20%, which on average they give. That means that they need to win 25 deals per year. This discount, I just zeroed it out, 20 deals. I just want you to see later on compounded how much that discount is going to hurt you. The discount to perpetual sale, who cares? The discount in compound sales, ooh, that's going to hurt you. Then I'm saying is, hey, this is what was. This is what is now current COVID. AE, so I pay, by the way, this is still the salaries. I pay an AE nowadays about $260,000. I pay the AE, its salary has gone up, not a lot, AE. We see that the salary of the sales engineer, solutions architect is at 180 right now. And your SDR that you're going to use for this in the modern sales, about $40,000, half an SDR for this. What you're going to find is if you live in the East Coast, if you live in Europe, you adjust these, the mathematical formula remains the same and the impact remains the same. It's just different values left to right. That means that right now you're going to see in order to do that, I need a $1.2 million quota. This is the quota that most of you see. Somewhere between this is the quota that most of you see for a team like this. That's the quota between 1 million and 1.2 million. If you go below that, you're running a loss on that deal. And unless your VC has given you a ton of money and says, go, 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 greenfield, run, 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 then you are entering unscalable. I'm going to show you where that unscalable starts to come in. Again, I'd have to win the amount of deals down here, 25, and down here, 30. I'm going to allow this. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, hey, how much money am I going to spend cost for lead development, CFL, cost for lead development? I'm going to use the 10% marker that you saw me spend earlier. So now I'm saying, hey, I'm spending 10% on lead. Now, on a $50,000 lead, on a $50,000 that I give 20% discount, that means 10% of $40,000 equals $4,000. That means that I can spend $4,000 on all the leads I need to generate one win that would come out at 20% discount with an ACV of $50,000. Everybody still get me there? If I divide that by CR4, CR3, and CR2, that we know historically these are the numbers, that means that on average I can spend per MQL $225. and I need on average 444 MQLs, sorry, that's not per month. I need on average 444 MQLs in order to get me there. Sorry, prospects. These are prospects, I apologize. Now, what you're going to see is if I divide this, if I kind of calculate, in order to get my 25 deals a year, I'm going to need 440 MQLs. I'm going to need 25% conversion rate. I will have to call on 1,778 prospects, on which on average, I need to spend $56 in order to get that $50,000 deal. This is what was, people. This worked. If you think about it, oh, $50, that means we can go to trade show and hand out t-shirts. That means we can do stuff. Now, it doesn't mean you can spend 56 here and then another 225 there. Either you spend 56 here or you spend 225 there. So remember, this is calculated over the total lead lifetime value. Now, here's where things are going to get icky. I'm now using the same thing, but what we see is I'm still holding on to the 10%, but my win rate due to COVID is dropping. So I'm no longer winning 25% of the deal. I'm winning 18% of the deal. My handoff rate no longer is that good. People are bowing out, 70%. My lead development rate is no longer 4%, but as you can see now today, is right now going towards 1%. 10% times 10% down here, lead to O is 1%. If you don't worry about you exactly following these numbers 100%, know that this freaking number has dropped to $47. And I now need 2,540 MQLs to hit that $1 million quota. It's going to get worse. On average, I needed 8 emails to close a deal. I now need 14 emails and touches to close a deal. If I distribute that over 28% emails and calls, I now need to make, on average, a year, down here, 71,000 calls, 284,000 emails by a single SDR that is only half occupied to deliver this person and get this guy on quota or gal on quota. That means 23,000 emails a month. Compound impact went from, hey, 1,000 a month, which we could accomplish with outreach and sales loft, to 23,000 a month, which is what you're currently seeing happening to your inbox. Compound impact works positive, but if you work it backwards, it works negative. This is the reason why all these models in all different forms and shapes are falling on their ass. Mathematically, we can calculate it out and we can go like, well, I have a really good salesperson. Great. You have a 4,000 emails needed. Or folks, go for it. Like, knock yourselves out. Do you want to see your market die on itself? Send out 284,000 emails. See your total available market shrink. But I want you to think about, like, look, what are we going to do about that? I tell you what, I will never go back to a sales job without telling people and calculating this number up front and seeing if it makes economic sense for me to take on a sales leadership role. If the company on the other side does not have the appetite to digest this and is just going to crack the whip, Jocko, work twice as hard, you make twice as much money, and oh my God, we're so great, we got the greatest VCs and stuff like that. Folks, 18 months, good luck. And you know, like, your vesting is scheduled over a 4-year period, right? So you know what that means for your vesting. You're better off just leaving after 366 days. Sorry, shouldn't have said that. Okay. This problem propagates throughout. This problem is similar happening at SEO, email responses, similarly happening at ABM. All of that have similar calculations throughout. One of those is in 2-stage. You're going to see, I'm not stepping through this entire model, I'd rather open it up for conversation. But you'll see down here, your SDRs cannot generate today enough SQLs per month any longer. You are spending way too much money on the SDRs, and as a result, you are falling on your sword, which is what most 2-stage sales organizations have. ABM, same thing. We are currently seeing that way too much money and time is spent on too many accounts rather than on a few accounts. Et voila.
Jack, I'll just say that the kind of dialogue that's going on in the chat is very much along these lines of, wow, let's see, Lucas bring up, wow, what if your total addressable market is in that book? That scenario too seems like it would require a massive potential market. And then Tim makes the point that isn't part of this a byproduct of these tools like outreach and sales loft, which have contributed to millions of rubbish, low value add emails. So then we get into some of these issues of targeting the right people, actual customer centric, personalized communication and conversation, as opposed to blasting. But I think we're really all thinking in those terms.
Yeah, I'll share this. Like for those of you who see me before, I just like I hope that today, and as we start the conversation and open up for conversation, I hope that this quote, I have it on some slide somewhere. I just Googled it quick enough. I hope that this quote is what we have done today. This is the quote that I strive for. The problem is not so much to see what nobody has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought concerning that what we all see. This is like you can't unsee it. Once you have done there. Now, again, we're consulting for numerous VCs, for numerous PE firms. This is not like, oh, this is a signal that is from just a person with an opinion. And they're all trending towards this thing. This is unsustainable. And so what we are teaching and what we are hoping with this group, can we educate a group? Can we get them on the track of thinking on metrics, doing the right thing, thinking quality versus quantity, thinking focus on the few accounts, bring it back to only 5,000 total prospects versus 50,000, 500,000. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, thoughts, and ideas.
Jaco, you're basically saying that there's not a sales or sales operations solution to the current environment. That there's basically your investors want to believe in your company enough to fund it till we get through this, or the numbers will just not work out. I mean, they're really, your numbers are astonishing and they're really well done. I just don't see that there's actually a sales solution to what you're describing.
There is.
There is.
Yes. And the simple is as follows. Instead of throwing, and I say it blunt, I'm not meaning, obviously not, certainly not targeted to you, Pablo. I'm saying it blunt so it sticks better, okay?
Sure.
The blunt statement is this. Stop emailing thousands of people trying to throw things on the board and tell them what you got, and focus and spend all the time and energy on finding which people have a problem that you can solve and present to them in the right way what impact you have. The shortcut to that is create content that highlight the impact is that you provide to customer. And I'm not talking about a customer saying, oh, I was so great to work with XYZ and he delivered me this impact. Everybody's tone deaf of that. Show detailed research, what impact is that you're delivering, and what problem you're solving, and how it is benefiting. Show that. Show the 9-page research paper. Show the crazy ass engineer you have in the office going to whiteboard and telling you like, this is why I built this. You see, this is the problem. Let all that come out. And do not, and this is, again, this is open advice, do not put that behind email protection walls where you're harvesting emails so that some email algorithm can pump up and start pushing 28,000 emails to that person. Because you're turning that person tone deaf. Your Google algorithms are already aiming towards doing what I just told you to. Your LinkedIn algorithms are already doing it. We just need to stop, like using the outdated sales methodologies that we are trying to force to make that happen. Impact, impact, impact. Define the clients who you can impact. Share them with you how you can impact. Price your product on impact. Deliver that impact. And then once more impact is needed, recurring revenue equals recurring impact. But and you're going to find that VCs are going to be the right kind of VCs, which are becoming more and more of them, are going to be tuned to that. They're completely realized at this. And I just came from SaaS talk. Every VC starts talking about sustainability, not hyper growth, not blitz scaling. It's sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Jaco, it's Chris. I've got just some experience with certain early stage companies where they don't have, product market fit. They don't want to go out and, take on the world. Therefore, they go to a country focused model. Just trying to be honest, it doesn't look like it scales for those sort of companies. So, how do we on the outside weed those companies out while we're trying to, see if they're a good fit for our skills as sales leaders.
Like I would say, don't try to get into your next company the ideal Valhalla. I think there's a word for it. Don't try to get it all. Don't say it's like, oh, I need them to be and profitable and this and that. Try to see if you can get them to agree on a data model. Say, hey, we're going to build a data model on this, and we've got to work with that. Take in your next, take one or two of these things and try to get them there. And then trust that if you do that well, then you will get them there all the way. But being data driven would be a good start for me for working with a company, because that means that we can use common sense and language rather than opinions. Because the worst case that you can be is if the CEO or the group that is hiring you is talking about like, hey, we're looking to see if you have it. We're looking to see if you like you got to have that hunger. Like, what hunger?
Yeah, I mean, just to finish off, it usually seems to be that they focus on the finance, the CFO or a part-time CFO, where they focus more on the runway they have as an early stage company, and then they ask you to kind of reverse engineer the maths, which is some of what we've done today. Do you see that this supersedes all of that as well? Because in an SLT meeting, it doesn't feel like we're all talking the same language.
I think that when they ask you to reverse engineer, I would like you to do the following. This is a thought for you to consider, Chris. And I'm not trying to give you I cannot give you a direct answer, not knowing 100% of the cases. I can give you what I'm thinking. I would ask them from all the details I need to reverse engineer the number. I would give them that data because they want me to reverse engineer. Okay, what's your current win rate? What's your current X? What's your current Y? Give me a few metrics, right? And then I would calculate out and say like, look, based on where I'm sitting, you're not going to hit it this way. But if we do it this way, and then you present. Most companies don't, love to be, what they're testing you in this process is, do you understand the business? And so you can demonstrate that you understand the business and how you would build that number. And that may mean that you have to make assumptions. I'm assuming that we can double your price, or I'm assuming that we increase your price by 10%. I'm assuming that your market is this big. And you can make that assumption and write it down. And if they say that assumption is not true, mathematically you are correct. Whether you are 100% correct on all the assumptions, yeah, that's like, look, that's why they need to pay you, get you on board to figure that out. But you get at least them thinking. The data is a great place to start. And if they ask you to back engineer it, yes, but as a person who advises VCs on a number of occasions, or a lot, that number that they're wanting to, there's more funding, there's more runway, there's B rounds, there's C rounds pushed aside. The question is, what are the metrics behind the deal? What's the cost of the client acquisition? How are we growing? How much profit are we spinning off? That is where you get access and more runway if you need. And if you have great profit and great market, then B's and C rounds with great valuation will come your way.
Jocko, we have a couple of kind of questions and comments on a similar theme. Lucas asked the question, it seems to boil down to the classic idea of quality over quantity, but who should own that at the top of the funnel? And then, David kind of builds on that issue of sort of silos in the communication between CS, sales, and marketing.
I'd like to think that the person who believes that, who's going to control it, is the one who understands the math. And the one who could be, and today we see, is that the head of operations, the head of finance, whoever controls that formula, that spreadsheet that this is going to go through, is the one who should. And I like to think that is salespeople. Because I believe, like on that boat, that picture I shared with you early on, I like to think that person controls the sales, and that person in the back controls the goal, where we're going with the company, this market, and so on. But I like to think that is the person who controls that sale. It doesn't have to be always the case. I completely understandable if it's somebody different, but then it is the person who controls the math, the spreadsheet. Okay, that was it. Look, the best meetings and about a few minutes early, so you can all go to have a bathroom break and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave it here. Quick takeaway. I'm going to start. Chris, I'm going to ask you to give a takeaway, and I want all of you, if you can, and Chris and Andrea, if you can give me verbal the takeaway, if everybody else can type in your key takeaway. Chris Bolling, what is your key takeaway? And then Andrea Spellman, what is your key takeaway?
I'm an engineer by training. Math always works. You can make stuff up. You can throw it against the wall, but at the end of the day, it's going to slide off the wall.
That's great. And I tell you the following: are the benchmarks that we're using are changing because the industry is changing. Math doesn't change.
Exactly.
Right?
Andrea, I wish we could apply this to normal life these days, but we don't.
Yeah, exactly. Andrea, and then we're gonna put some music on and let us all dismantle. Last one is Andrea, your key takeaway.
My key takeaway is that COVID actually accelerated trends in selling and buyer behaviors that were there before, and now it just made it happen faster. And so it's always been about engaging on value, quality, and impact over quantity, but now even more so. And I love this formula you put together. I think data-driven is awesome. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for that key takeaway. With that said, I want to thank the Revenue Collective for giving us the opportunity to meet today. I want to make sure that I want to thank you all for being so diligent and staying with us for so long. On behalf of Winning by Design, Ken and myself, and Jessica, I saw her as well, and Sari for organizing all this. Thank you, and have a wonderful morning.